Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm very pleased to be here and to talk about crude oil to chemical mega projects. We all know that some of them are already launched and others are under current evaluation. I would like also to thank the organizers to give me the opportunity to share with you the Axens experience in this field. So first let me say a few words maybe about Axens. Maybe you are not very familiar with the name of this company. So we are currently active in 5 different markets: oil refining, as you can see here, petrochemicals, gases, natural gas treatment, but also industrial gas purification. We are also offering technologies in the field of the alternatives and chemicals products, converting, for instance, biomass into these different products. And we are also present on some niche markets for the water treatment. Recently, we have acquired a group which name is ERTE Petrochem. And this acquisition allows us to reinforce our position, notably in the field of the natural gas treatment by combining our offer of the catalyst sulfur removal unit with all the technology for the natural gas treatment, the amines treatment. The other point is that with this acquisition, we are now offering process furnaces for steam cracker in the field of petrochemical, but also for delayed coker, for instance, in the field of the refining. So here are some figures. I will not spend any more time to describe them, but just to give you an idea, we sell about 60,000 tons of catalyst per year and adsorbents, and we have above 2,900 units under license. So now let's come back to the topic of this presentation. It doesn't work anymore. Okay, so my presentation will be divided in 4 main parts. First, I will give you our perception of the oil and petrochemicals market dynamics and challenges. And then I will elaborate 2 real cases, 2 projects. One is a crude to paraxylene project, which is the Hengli project. And the second one is an upgrading of an existing complex, which objective was to increase the production of the olefins. And I will finish with some food for thought and telling a few words about the mega trends which are transforming our world, but also our industry. So let's start with the first point. So I will not enter into detail because Léon has already given a lot of details, but which is really which is very important to note, is that the fuel demand is really lower than the petrochemical demand. We do not anticipate a very strong demand for fuels due to the incorporation of biofuels, but also due to the electrification of the vehicle fleets and also to the increase of the engine efficiency of all our cars. So we anticipate an increase in demand for fuels below or around 1% and even below. For the petrochemicals, the situation is completely different. As you can see here, petrochemical demand should grow at a rate of 3 to 4% in the coming years. So this is a very challenging situation for both refining and petrochemicals, but this is not a new situation, and petrochemicals and refining have already dealt with this kind of situation. Let me show you. So first, I would like to ask you a question, like in a training course. So this question is the following. In your opinion, in 2035, how much oil will be required to be converted into petrochemicals? You have 4 possible answers mentioned here, ranging from 10.2 to 17.3 million barrels per day. And I would like to remind you that in 1990, 5.3 million barrels per day of oil were converted into petrochemicals. I give you some additional seconds to make your choice. Have you made your choice? So the right answer was the answer number 3. Can I ask you if you get the right answer? Raise the hand. Yes. Okay. Could do better, maybe. So it is an answer. It is only an answer. And this was coming from the reference technology scenario published last year by the International Energy Agency. And you can see that, so the right answer was the answer number 3. 15.6 million barrels per day will be required for the petrochemicals. So that is to say, it is 3 times the quantity converted in 1990. And this trend should continue, according to this scenario, of course. So now let's see what will be the incremental demand in crude oil in the coming years. Here we have reported the global oil demand, the incremental global oil demand for the future, and we can see that this incremental demand is going to slow down from 11 million barrels per day to less than 3 million barrels per day. But what is very important to note is that the share of the crude oil needed, required by the petrochemicals will increase. This is the green bar, and it will be, the petrochemicals will be the first driver of the increase in demand for crude oil, as you can see here. Now, if we try to qualify what kind of feedstock will be required for the petrochemicals, always according to the scenarios of the studies of the International Energy Agency, it will be mainly naphtha and followed by ethane and LPG. So naphtha is for the production of aromatics, but also for the production of olefins, and the ethane and the LPG can be cracked in steam crackers. So now let me continue, and I would like to elaborate about 2 what I call case studies, but they are real projects now. And the first one is the paraxylene, crude oil to paraxylene project. This is the Hengli project. This is a very huge project, which objective is to convert 20 million tons of crude oil, that is to say around 4 million barrels per day, into paraxylene, but not only paraxylene, because the Hengli requirement were also to produce high quality fuels, and also some Group 3 lube base oil. So that was the objectives. The feedstock is a mixture of Arabian heavy, Arabian light, and with 10% marlim, which is a very heavy crude with an API degree of 22. You can see that, so the objective, the product requirement was to maximize the quantity of heavy naphtha produced in order to maximize and optimize the paraxylene quantity that can be produced by this complex. All the fuels that are going to be produced by this complex are meeting the China 5, China 6 specifications. That is to say, the sulfur content is less than 10 ppm, and for instance, for the diesel, the cetane index is higher than 51. So one of the prerequisites of this complex is to minimize the quantity of the residue remaining. So you have to convert deeply the vacuum residue in order to take advantage of this low value vacuum residue and to transform this VR in high value molecules such as paraxylene, but also fuels in this case. So now this is the scheme which has been selected, and we have I am going to try to give you an explanation about this scheme. So all the heavy naphtha streams are in purple. So the objective is to maximize the production of this heavy naphtha, which is required by the paraxylene, by the aromatic complex. And you can see that, of course, the heavy naphtha, the straight run heavy naphtha coming from the atmospheric distillation unit is taken and sent to the aromatic complex. And in order to push the production of the heavy naphtha, we have especially designed a diesel hydrotreater hydrocracker unit, which objective is to convert the heavy molecule, the gas oil heavy molecule, into a naphtha. with a high selectivity. And then you have this purple stream going to the aromatic complex. Now, if we move to the bottom of the barrel, we can see that the straight-run vacuum gas oil is hydrocracked in what we call a straight-run vacuum gas oil hydrocracker, which objective here is to produce the middle distillates, high-quality fuels. That means mainly the jet fuel and the diesel streams. Also, this unit is also going to produce, to a lesser extent, some heavy naphtha, which is recovered. Now let's move to the core of this scheme, which is the conversion of the vacuum residue. This vacuum residue, which contains higher molecules presented by Léon, are difficult to crack, and we need hydrogen. So this hydrogen, this ability bed hydrocracker, is working in presence of high pressure of hydrogen, and is able to convert these big molecules into lighter molecules, such as gas oil, which will be treated in the diesel hydrotreater hydrocracker unit in order to produce heavy naphtha. Some heavy naphtha is directly produced and will be recovered to be processed in the aromatic complex. And finally, this ability bed hydrocracker is also going to produce vacuum gas oil, which is an intermediate size of molecules, around, I will say, 20 atoms of carbons, and it will be sent to this full conversion hydrocracker, which is mentioned here. And this hydrocracker has been has been designed to produce the highest quantity possible of naphtha, which is the purple stream indicated here. In order to push the conversion a step further, the UCO, that is to say the unconverted oil coming from the ebullated bed, is sent to a solvent deasphalting. Solvent deasphalting is a unit which is able to separate the very high level of the very high molecule weight molecules and from the DIO, which is the deasphalted oil, which is a good feedstock, which is a feedstock that could be cracked in a full conversion hydrocracker. Doing that, I give you some figures. We can reach conversion above 98% of the vacuum residue, and yield, the heavy naphtha yield is about 45%, which means that this scheme is able to produce 9 million tons per year of naphtha, of heavy naphtha. The light naphtha, which is resulting from the cracking of all these molecules, of these streams, will be processed in a steam cracker. Okay, now let's say a few words about the ebullated bed technology. So the H-oil, the ebullated bed hydrocracker unit, is an hydrocracker, is working under a hydrogen pressure, as mentioned also by Léon. And the catalyst is maintained in an expanded bed thanks to the recycle of the oil with a pump, which is indicated here. So the conversion is maintained at a steady level thanks to the injection of fresh catalyst and the removal of the spent catalyst. The injection of the fresh feed and the hydrogen is made through the grid and the pipe in green. So this is a well-demonstrated technology. This is a mature and reliable technology, and it presents high availability. That is to say, it's able to work with availability rate above 96%, which is very important for the economics of the complex. Okay. Now, a few words about the aromatic complex. This is a very huge aromatic complex, probably one of the world largest paraxylene complex. So the full range naphtha is hydrotreated. It contains contaminants, sulfur, for instance, that need to be removed. So this full range naphtha is hydrotreated in the presence of hydrogen and especially designed catalyst. the light naphtha is recovered and sent to the steam cracker, while the heavy naphtha will be reformed, will be sent to three reforming units, 3 trains of reforming units in parallel in order to produce the aromatic molecules, mainly benzene, also toluene and xylenes. Then you need to separate all these molecules and to optimize the production of the paraxylene, which is done in 2 aromatic loops in parallel, 2 trains of aromatic loops in parallel, which are able to produce 4.5 million tons per year of paraxylene, which is very, very huge. Now let's move to the second case study I would like to share with you. And this time we are in South Korea. The refinery is S-Oil. And the context was the following. It was a major expansion of existing complex. And the feedstock here is a mixture of Arabian heavy and Arabian light, like in the previous one. And the objectives were different than the previous case. The first one was to maximize the propylene production and also to minimize the remaining heavy sulfur fuel oil, which contain up to 3.5 weight percent of sulfur. That means that it's very important to decrease this fuel oil, this heavy sulfur fuel oil, because its value it has a very low value, and also because the International Maritime Organization has set a new specification limiting the sulfur content to 0.5. So the market for this heavy sulfur fuel oil is going to disappear. And of course, the objective was to select the best configuration to improve the economics. So this was the initial configuration. This was a quite complex refinery equipped with an hydrocracker, HCK, and also equipped with a resid FCC technology, a resid fluid catalytic cracking technology, which was able to crack the residue previously hydrotreated in the RHDS unit, which is in fact an hydrotreater enabling to remove metals, to put hydrogen into the feedstock. And once doing that, you can send this hydrotreated vacuum residue or atmospheric residue to the fluid catalytic cracking unit, which is going to produce gasoline, to produce also to some extent olefins, and also to produce LCO, which is the equivalent of the middle distillate, diesel, for instance, but with a lower quality. After several workshops with S-Oil and some different configuration studies, we came to the conclusion that the best option would be to process separately the atmospheric residue and the vacuum residue. And this is the scheme which has been finally selected. So you can see here that the vacuum residue is going to be treated in the existing hydrotreating unit of the residue, whereas the atmospheric residue is going to be hydrotreated process in an atmospheric residue desulfurization unit that will be sent to high severity FCC technology. I will tell you a few words about this technology. And this atmospheric residue, when desulfurized, properties are improved. For instance, its hydrogen content has been increased, metals have been removed, sulfur have been also decreased, sulfur content and nitrogen content have been decreased. So it's sent to this high severity FCC technology along with a lighter stream, which is the vacuum gas oil stream, once hydrotreated in a mild hydrocracker. So with this configuration, combining 2 types of hydrocracker and their own hydrotreatment, it was able to increase the production of propylene by a factor 3.6, to increase also the production of LPG, while the production of fuels, gasoline and middle distillate, jet fuel and diesel, remain at the same level than before. What is very important is to note is that the production of the heavier fraction has been reduced. The heavy sulfur fuel oil has been virtually eliminated, and the production of the low sulfur fuel oil has been reduced. But furthermore, which is more important, is that the quality of this light sulfur fuel oil has been really improved, with a sulfur content lower than 0.5, so meeting the future international maritime specifications for marine bunker fuel. Okay, so now let me say a few words about this high severity FCC technology, which is on which this innovative scheme is based. So this is a FCC technology, but unlike classical FCC technology, this technology, which has been developed by Saudi Aramco, GX, Technip, FMC, and Axens, is equipped with a downflow reactor. So why to use a downflow reactor? Which is very important in this case is to limit the contact time inside the reactor in order to avoid hydrogen transfer from different molecules from inside the FCC unit to the olefins. Because if you have this hydrogen transfer, you are going to saturate the olefins and you are not going to produce the right products. So you need a short contact time, you need a high, what we call, I'm sorry for that, cat-to-oil ratio, that is to say to increase the quantity of catalyst, to push the conversion, and to use a higher reaction temperature. Doing that, you are able to reach this, the level, the targeted level of propylene production. Here there is a comparison of the product slate in the initial configuration and in the final, in the new configuration. You can see that there is an increase of the propylene production, and the propylene lead from the atmospheric residue, that means the bottom of the barrel, is 18%. There was a minimization of the fuel oil, which has the lowest value, and the maximum liquid yields with no increase in the production of fuels, which correspond to the demand market. In this case, Axens has been involved since the beginning, from the initial studies up to the startup. The startup has been, the unit has been started up, and 100% capacity has been demonstrated. Here is an impressive picture during the construction of the HSFCC unit. So I would like to have 2 or 3 minutes to give you a conclusion before to elaborate about the megatrends, future megatrends. So petrochemical demand is growing higher than the fuels demand. So it's for sure. Crude oil to chemicals complexes are offering many advantages for those who are investing in this project. It expands in a higher growth market, as indicated. You are also able to mitigate risk related to raw material and product price variations. You are betting on 2 different markets. And, but one solution doesn't fit all. You have to study case by case. Each case is specific and tailor-made, I would say tailor-made solution have to be defined. Now I would like to finish with the last point and to have some thought about what are the mega trends which are transforming our world today, but also tomorrow. We have, we speak about, of course, the increase in population in the world from 3 billion to 5 or 8 billion in the future. That is, of course, a very strong mega trend. I will only give some example about pollution. Pollution for us is a very important megatrend because it has led to all this implementation for more stringent specification for improving the quality of the air. That is to say, the quality of the fuels decreasing the sulfur content, decreasing the benzene content in the gasoline, and improving the quality of the diesel, especially in Europe, where the share of the diesel engine are very important. So this is one of the big megatrends that will continue in the future. The second one is the climate change and energy transition. This is also very important. The integration of biofuels or the electrification of the vehicle fleet is coming from this energy transition, especially in Europe. We have regulation about that, and the energy efficiency of the motor of the engine of our vehicles is also improving year after year. What I would like to point out now is the aspiration of better quality of life of an increasing part of the world population. What does it mean? It means more goods, it means more petrochemicals, so it means a higher quantity of petrochemicals to be produced. But we have to take into account that the awareness of the consumer is increasing, and it's no more possible to reject the plastic waste into the oceans or to landfill them, or maybe to incinerate them, and that the recycling technology will have to be developed. Plastic recycling will have to be developed in the future if we want that our industry will comply with the new regulations. So I'm sure that in the future, a significant part of the virgin plastic demand, and so on, the petrochemical demand, could be covered by the recycling of used plastic, waste plastic. And this is also a key parameter to be taken into account when investing in this mega project. Thank you very much for your attention.